You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast, episode 21.
Transforming the world with love is the idea that we are in this all together, and that the way that we live our lives individually does in fact have a direct or indirect impact much beyond ourselves, rippling out all across the world. And so we stand in our spiritual practice toward helping the individual and then helping the transformation of the world through the transformed individual.
You're listening to the Life Purpose Advisor Podcast.
Life purpose, spirituality, higher calling, personal growth, meaningful life.
We ask the deep questions about living a balanced life of meaning, purpose, and joy.
Passion, know thyself, be mindful, spiritual practice, aha moments, life lessons, balance.
It is time to welcome your host, Angie Swartz.
Today it's my great pleasure to welcome Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell to the show. Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell has been a force in the effort toward global change for nearly 30 years. Wendy was ordained as a Unity minister in 1980. She is the founder, CEO, and senior minister of the Unity Center, a 1,500-member spiritual community located in San Diego, California. Wendy has been awarded the Gandhi Nonviolence Award from the Tariq Khamisa Foundation and has been inducted into the Martin Luther King Jr. Board of Preachers Hall of Fame. Wendy, welcome.
Hi, Angie. It's great to be with you today.
It's always great to be in your presence, even if it's just your voice. I'm so excited to talk to you about your life and life purpose.
It'll be fun.
It will be great fun. Your bio has some really amazing things in it. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about some of the great things that you've done. It says that you're the vice president of the Association of Global New Thought. Can you tell me a little bit about that organization and the things you've done with it over the years?
Sure. The Association for Global New Thought has as some of its primary purposes being able to acquaint a larger worldwide audience with the basic principles and practices of New Thought, while at the same time teaching and encouraging and modeling the ability to help to bring about positive change in the world in a very active way, grounded in spiritual principle. About 17 years ago, we began a program called the Season for Nonviolence, which commemorates the assassination dates of Martin Luther King Jr. and Mahatma Gandhi, the 64 days between those two anniversary dates, with the focus of being a worldwide educational movement to help acquaint people with the principles of nonviolence. And these programs now are in countries all around the world, in schools and civic organizations and clubs and businesses and spiritual centers. And that whole Season for Nonviolence has now expanded to include 3 other seasons that include the environment and interreligious studies and so forth. And then in addition to that, the Association for Global New Thought has worked with the Office of Tibet since prior to 1999. We've convened 3 synthesis dialogues with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, bringing together world leaders and spiritual leaders and thinkers to address some of the real issues facing the world today, and to do so from a place of mutual respect and cooperation. So those are just some of the primary areas that we focus in.
That sounds like a lifetime of work just in itself, aside from all the other things that I know that you do.
It keeps me pretty busy.
Your bio also says that you and the Unity Center were instrumental in the formation of the San Diego Department of Peace, which is now Americans for the Department of Peace. Can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, actually that came about as a result of a peace march that some of our members and friends got involved in during one of our synthesis dialogues, the one that we held with His Holiness in Rome, Italy. And the members were so taken by the international walk for peace that when they came home, several of them said, we need to do something here in San Diego, and let's work together toward establishing a cabinet-level position called the Department of Peace. And because these were members of the Unity Center, and because we stand for making a positive difference in the world, and we stand for peace, we said, let's try to work together, and the Unity Center gave an awful lot of support to the leadership, the local grassroots leadership of the formation of that organization. And so that's a part of the involvement that we had.
Very, very rich involvement in changing the lives of so many people in our local community. If you've never visited Wendy Craig-Purcell's Unity Center in San Diego, you should think about joining her on a Sunday at 9 or 11 or a Wednesday evening. And I'll just ask you, Wendy, when you walk in the sanctuary of your center, what are the words that you see that are on the top, the mantra of the church?
Inspiring personal greatness and transforming the world with love.
What a beautiful thing. Can you just say that again?
Inspiring personal greatness and transforming the world with love.
Very beautiful. And where did those words come from?
They came out of a process of deep reflection and meditation, and they're really an expression of what is at the heart and soul, I believe, of spiritual practice, and that is work on the individual level, hence the first part of our statement, inspiring personal greatness, working at the individual level to heal mentally, emotionally, and physically, to grow and to change and to become our best authentic selves, and then to realize that our life is not meant to be just for ourselves or those that are near and dear and close to us, but that we have a responsibility to expand that outward. Hence, the second part of our mission statement, transforming the world with love, is the idea that we are in this all together, and that the way that we live our lives individually does in fact have a direct or indirect impact much beyond ourselves, rippling out all across the world. And so we stand in our spiritual practice toward helping the individual and then helping the transformation of the world through the transformed individual.
And you must have witnessed many, many things that have happened because of that statement over the years. And I know I could spend an hour interviewing you about what's come out of your community, but I would love to talk to you about yourself, about your life purpose. Is that okay with you?
You bet.
Do you know what your own life purpose is?
Yes, I do. And it's what keeps me going and keeps me motivated and focused and on track most all of the time. And essentially, Angie, it is to assist in the personal and global transformation by teaching everyday spiritual wisdom and modeling in my own life conscious living. So it's really about how can I have the greatest positive impact locally and beyond by teaching everyday spiritual wisdom and then by modeling conscious living.
Mm-hmm. I noticed on the outside of your building there's a great big sign that says free life coaching every Sunday, 9 and 11. And what do you mean by that?
That came to me one day as we were looking at different ways to describe who and what we are as a spiritual community and what we do. And it just dawned on me that really, to a very large extent, everything that I speak about and teach about on a Sunday morning supports life coaching, life transformation. And what I do know, Angie, I've been a minister now I'm in my 35th year. And what I do know is that for many people, the concept of church has lost its relevancy, and that one of our challenges is forever trying to educate and inform new people or the community at large that who we are and what we do at the Unity Center is not your typical concept of church. And so the idea of quote-unquote free life coaching every Sunday at 9 and 11 is an attempt at describing more who and what we are than could ever be conveyed in the word church.
I would agree with that. I'm proud to say that I'm a member of the Unity Center, and I try to spend time volunteering and supporting Wendy. And I can't tell you the number of people that I've heard say over the years, I know she was talking to me. She was just talking to me about what's going on in my life. How does she know? And I know, Wendy, you say, I'm really not following you around, but sometimes I think it seems like that. I would have to agree with you. It is a very good dose of life coaching for anyone that's out there going through any kind of life transition. You should come join us.
Thank you, Angie. And we're blessed and delighted to have you be a part of this community. You make a big difference.
Oh, that's very sweet of you. But we're not here to talk about me today. We're here to talk about you. I've heard you talk about your story many times. Did you have any aha moments when you were younger about that directed you maybe obviously or not so obviously towards your life purpose?
I would have to say yes. It came when I was about, I want to say maybe 17 years old. I was sitting in a Unity church here in San Diego. I had started attending at the suggestion of my grandmother. And while sitting there and absorbing messages that I felt were written just for me, so I understand what it feels like when people say that about the messages I deliver. But as I sat there absorbing the messages that were making a difference in my own life to the extent that I practiced them, all of a sudden one day, after about short period of time, actually after about 6 months or so, I remember having a vision that startled me. And the vision was that I would be doing the same thing that the minister before me was doing. In fact, it wasn't words. I actually literally saw myself in his pulpit speaking. And it was a very disturbing image for me because I couldn't relate to it, quite honestly. I was female. I was young. I didn't think of myself as a church person. I still don't think of myself as a church person. I definitely think of myself as a deeply committed spiritual individual. But that was probably a very important moment in my life. And then because it was a picture or a concept that I couldn't relate to, I suppressed it. And what we know is when we suppress something, it can stay down only so long. It will find its way to get our attention. And what happened for me or to me was I started to wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares that I was, in fact, going to become a Unity minister. And that was even more disturbing to me than the vision I had sitting there in that church. I went to my grandmother one day, wanting to share with her both the vision and the nightmares I was having, because I was convinced that she would talk me out of it, that it was such a ridiculous idea. And so I went to have this conversation with her, and just as I got up the courage and the nerve to tell her this crazy picture and dream, she said, "Wait a minute, Wendy," and she left the area that we were talking in, went to her bedroom, came back, and handed me an envelope. And in the envelope was a note she had written to herself sometime earlier. And in that note, she said she had had a premonition that I would become a Unity minister. And so that kind of just, I don't know what the words are, was so totally shocking, because here I was going to her to have her explain to me why, yes, Wendy, you're right, this is a ridiculous thought, that's not your path. And instead she said, no, I sense that this is your path. And then shortly after that, it absolutely felt right. So my life purpose aha moment didn't come in the way that maybe it might to others or for others. Mine came first with quite a bit of confusion and resistance around it.
I don't think that's all that uncommon. And from my experience in doing this life purpose work, it seems, I don't know that people have visions and confirmation from a vision from their grandmother like you had, but it does certainly seem that sometimes things are scary or painful, or you have to go through a difficult time before getting to your life purpose. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I would agree with that. And I think, too, that oftentimes the things that have contributed in our past to what helps us to be good at and grow into our life purpose are not things that necessarily directly relate to it. You know, I can think of a couple of examples. I can think of being accused as a little girl of being too strong, too fast, too confident, and in the worst moments called too bossy. And now I look back at that, and I think, you know, those were the rudimentary ingredients, really, for leadership. And I don't know that some of those same words would have been used had they been used to describe my brother. There's still a little bit of that stereotypical energy around women in leadership compared to men in leadership, and what qualities are okay for men to have versus women. And then the other would have been that didn't seem to connect dots, but actually has served me very well, were the fair number of years I devoted to ice skating and to becoming as good at that as I possibly could. In that, skills of focus and discipline and practice became absolutely deeply ingrained in me, and they are some of the things that I rely on so much now in the work that I do. So I think that everything that we have been through in our lives has the potential to support us in furthering who we are becoming. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes me want to ask you about your family and whether you think, Wendy, you have two children, now college and not, and moved on to professional life age, and your husband. Do you think your family has had an impact on keeping you on the path to do this very important work?
They've certainly been completely supportive of it. And, you know, in a way, that's a hard question to answer because this path is who and what I am. So I can't imagine, no matter what outer form my life might take, you know, if I stepped away from being the minister of the Unity Center and the CEO of the Unity Center, I would still be devoted to the same internal and external practices. They would just professionally take a different form. So I don't know that I do what I do because of my family, but I certainly know that because of my family, there's a tremendous amount of support and stability, and there's also the desire to continue because especially when the children were young, you know, you look at your kids as a mom and you want not only the best for them, but you want to help co-create a world that will be good for them and all mothers and fathers' children. So that's a high motivating factor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to talk very clearly about what your spiritual beliefs are.
How much time do we have?
For you, Wendy, we have as long as you need.
Oh, gosh. You know, it depends on how simplistically and concisely we want to go. First and foremost, I believe that there is a presence, a power, an energy operative in the universe that sustains us and that we are a part of, and it is a part of us. For many people, they call that God. I call that God. This presence and power and principle in the universe is a benevolent presence, power, and principle. It is not anthropomorphic. It is not a being existing somewhere in time and space, but the very ground of being, as they would say in Buddhism, out of which all that is manifest has come. We, second layer to that, we are a part of that, and it is a part of us. We are inherently good. There is the spark of that, the spark of the divine, if we want to put it in those terms, that exists within each and every one of us. We didn't put it there. We can't get rid of it. It is what we are in our essential nature, whether we are aware of it or not, whether we consider ourselves spiritual or religious or not. I believe that a good part of our life journey is beginning to understand that we are more than this physical being. We are more than the things we have or the things that we have done. That there is this spiritual essence. And a lot of times the challenges that we experience in our life are the very drivers to force us awake to this other dimension of ourselves. And so these are some of the very core concepts that make up my ideology of spiritual belief. And out of those beliefs then come some very decided practices.
I would love to talk to you about practices in a moment. For anyone that's listening out there that may not have spirituality or religion in their lives, can you just talk briefly about why you're certain that those things are true? I know that's a big question, but I think an important one.
It is a big question. I think that it comes both from within and from without. In fact, I was teaching a Unity Basics class last night, and we were going over some of these very concepts and ideas. I think that from the internal standpoint, when we begin to cultivate the internal life of reflection and introspection, and when we learn to go beyond the conscious mind and beyond the activity of thought, we begin then to move into a different state of consciousness and awareness. And at that state of being, at that level, we begin to experience the essence of life. And in the experience of that, we feel, it is a felt sense and a knowingness that bypasses rational thinking, that there is a presence, there is a force, there is something beneath all that we see that is benevolent or that is good. So that's a little bit of the internal knowing, but that doesn't come by just, that comes, Angie, I believe, as a result of some long and deep internal practice. Some of the external that we can look at, I think, have to do with, I'll give you two examples. If we step aside from religion for a moment, which tends to separate us while spirituality absolutely has the potential to unite us, but as we step aside from religion and from dogma and creed, and we begin to peel back to the very essence, religion began as a response to questions like, why are we here? What is the meaning of our life? When you go back and you look across various indigenous cultures and people, you look into the individuals from whom the world religions sprang forth, you begin to find such commonality in what they are saying in basic concepts, that we are one, that there is a force for good, that force we might call love. There is an intelligence. We can look out at just the unfolding of nature, for example, and we can see the implicit order in nature itself. We can see just in the evolution, not only of ourselves as a human species, but the evolution of species in the animal kingdom, that there is this constant growth and adaptation and evolving that has in back of it a principle or an intelligence. So I think that we can look outwardly and see so much evidence and support for the things I've said earlier.
So a very great place to start. If there's a person listening out there that doesn't have spiritual home and they're not in San Diego perhaps and can't visit us in the Unity Center, if you could only tell them one thing to do, like they're starting to have a yearning but they don't know what to do next, could you make a recommendation for them?
I think that probably one of the most important things is if a person is beginning to feel a yearning, I call it divine discontent, the feeling like something's missing, not as someone and really not an external something, but that almost like an emptiness or a craving for connection with something beyond oneself. That I think paying attention to that and honoring it by spending a period of time every single day in some form of a meditative or reflective practice where the mind is slowed down, where we become more quiet and still, and we probe deeper into what is that all about? And we ask that question from a deep place, from our gut, from our heart, from our soul, not from our head, because it can't be answered the way that we answer most questions. And that we listen into what is the urging, what's coming forward for us when we ask, what about this divine discontent? What is longing to find expression in my life? So the making time to be in reflection is very, very important on a daily basis. And then I think beginning to experiment. I know you asked for one, but I'm going to follow it with another. Beginning to experiment. Read, go on the web, look for, obviously I'm very involved in Unity. I'm very knowledgeable about the New Thought movement, which includes religious science. I'd encourage people to start looking there. If they're looking for some sort of spiritual practice that is open and inclusive, that does not believe that there is only one path or one right way, the New Thought movement is a large playing field with a very inclusive spiritual community and practice that could be a good place to start. I think that it's important to check a community and its teachings out for a while and to be very honest with yourself. Do you resonate with it? Do you, when you read the materials or when you sit and listen to a talk, whether in person or online, does it make sense to both your mind and your heart? Is there a feeling of recognition? And then if there is, to continue on and to see where that path leads.
Right. And for someone, great recommendations. For someone that's out there thinking they might want to check out a Unity Spiritual Center, what's the best way for them to do that, to find a center in their local area?
They can go onto the web and type in unity.org. That takes them to the Unity Worldwide Headquarters website, and on that homepage there is a button that says Find a Church Near You, and they can type in their zip code for that. I believe that religious science, which is another part of the New Thought movement, has something very similar. I'm not as familiar with the name of their website, but it wouldn't take very much to explore both of those churches in their local community.
Just one question that we haven't talked about, Wendy. Just talk a little bit about, Wendy's very technologically savvy. You're talking about using the web, but you also use, I know you're always using your iPhone. Do you have apps on your phone that promote your the work that you do and your own daily practice? Maybe you have hundreds of them, and we don't have time for all of them. But
yes, and yes.
I hear you laughing.
Yes, I just picked up my iPhone, and I will be happy to share some of them that I think are very helpful in terms of spiritual practice. And I want to make sure I give the right names here. So just give me one very quick second. So
Sure. I'll just mention while you're looking for that Wendy has actually taught classes on becoming more adept at using technology because of request from the congregation at the Unity Center. So I'm not sure about other ministers that are out there in the world, but I would venture to guess that you're in the top 10% of those technology users that are out there. I know you have a great love for finding new tools and learning new things.
Yes, I do, and for the purpose of my own growth and development, not just for the sake of doing it. So I have an icon on my iPad and iPhone that has several apps in it that I call my morning routine. And so I have a great little app called Inspire. I can't recommend that one highly enough. It is for anyone who is familiar with treasure mapping or vision boards. I know you recently did a vision board workshop here at the center. Inspire is a way to create something similar to a vision board on your iPad. It allows you to identify your roles, your goals, your mission, and your action steps or objectives for the week. It uses whatever visuals you want to add to it. You can personalize it with your own music and so forth. So it's a very, very rich tool, and it's something that I use every single morning. I look through what's my personal mission, what are the roles that I play, what are the goals I have, and what are the action steps I'm going to take. And then every week I update those action steps. I have a meditation tool on my iPad. I use Insight Timer. It allows me to pick the sounds of some beautiful Tibetan bowls that I use during my morning meditation time. I have a journaling app that I use. I try to be as green as I can, so I do prefer to do as much electronically as I can. I have a prayer app and quite a few others that just help me to really stay focused on what matters most to me. And then I actually have a little program called Track the letter N, and then share. And it's where I keep myself honest. So any of the things that I have said are important to me that I want to do on a regular basis, whether it's my spiritual practice or my exercise routine, I have those logged in with the frequency with which I hold myself accountable to doing them. And then at the end of every day, I mark off, did I do those things or not? So that's just a sampling.
Thank you. Thank you for all of those. I learned a few things myself. I can't wait to go check them out. Great segue to talking about your own daily practice. Can you tell us what is your daily practice other than the things that you just mentioned?
Well, I spend the first 2 hours of every day are mine. I get up early. I'm usually up by or before 5 o'clock. And in those first 2 hours, the things that I practice are my meditation program, which is mindfulness meditation. It's when I do my daily journaling. It is when I do my reflection on the day before and set my intentions for the current day. And then it is also the time that I do my physical exercise. And so what I've learned is if I don't put those things first, there's a tendency to let time go by and not get to them. So meditation is probably the single most important daily practice that I have, mindfulness meditation. And there's also spiritual reading that I do in the morning as well.
And that's a lot. That's a lot to do in 2 hours.
It is.
Are you, and you mentioned your physical activity. Are you still running?
I'm not running. I am doing some very energetic cardio workout. I do some work with free weights. I still do yoga. I've just started working with, I don't even know how you pronounce it. I think it's Bozu. It's that half note ball. I love anything requiring balance. Currently, I love to ski, and I have for many years now. So those are some of the exercise type things that I do. I think it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. And that Bosu, if you turn it upside down so that the blue part is on the bottom and get up there and stand on it, it almost feels like you could be, using the same muscles in your leg as you would be for skiing.
You should have seen me the other morning. I said to my husband, I'm going to see if I can do the tree pose on this. Well, I haven't mastered it yet, but I will.
I know that you will. Since we're on this topic, what role do you think the physical body plays in staying in line with our purpose?
I don't know how we can fulfill our purpose if we're not also taking care of ourselves physically. If we're not feeling well or we're letting ourselves go over time, we may be able to do that for a while. but eventually it's going to catch up with us, and we're just not going to have the physical stamina to be able to pursue the things that really matter to us to fulfill the purpose that we have. So taking care of ourselves physically is a really key part of it. And I think that the body tells us what it needs. It doesn't mean that we're paying attention. But the body does give us very soft, subtle warning clues of, that it needs care and attention or exercise or better nutrition or less food or stretching or so forth. And if we continually refuse to heed those quiet warnings, eventually they become screams until they become pretty serious news from the doctor. And it's much harder to let things go to the extreme and then try to regain our health and well-being. Far better to say, okay, I know that there are basic things I need to do. I'm going to do them because my purpose is going to require that I remain healthy and strong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Talk to me about synchronicity. Do you believe in synchronicity? Do you think magic happens?
I don't know that I would call it magic, because magic, there is a reason behind it, right? The magician knows what the secret is. But yes, I do believe that there's synchronicity. I do believe that there are things that happen in exquisite divine timing that we don't have the knowledge to explain how they have come about, but nonetheless they have, of being in just the right place at just the right time, or not being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I think it's the way the universe kind of tickles us and delights us and surprises us with these exquisite moments that we might call chance or coincidence. I love the little expression. Coincidence is the name that God or Spirit uses when God or Spirit wishes to remain anonymous.
Yeah. Well, I can't do this question without saying to the people out there listening, synchronicity is one of my stories about synchronicity. Is I had put on my to-do list years ago that I wanted to check out the Unity Center. And then I went to an event on a Friday night, and a woman was sitting next to me, and I turned and I said, "Are you a minister?" And Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell was sitting right next to me, and that seemed like a good sign that maybe I should be in her center on Sunday morning. So, and that's how that went, and I've been coming ever since then.
Oh, my gosh, Angie, I remember that evening very, very well, but the part I didn't know was that you had put on your list that you had wanted to check it out. That part I didn't know, but I remember that encounter and just a nice connection that I had felt with you there. And here I thought it was going to be about sharing that blue mat and doing Aikido, but it's turned out to be a very rich something different.
Right, right. Yes, it's a wonderful thing. Someone in Encinitas had recommended your center to me within 6 months before that, and I guess I wasn't getting around to it fast enough, so there you were. But can I ask you about money? I'm not sure this question even applies to you because you've been doing this your whole life, so let me just change it up a little bit. Are you happy with your financial position in life, doing what you love? I
am. In the beginning, it was very, very hard in the beginning because I founded the church, on my own. I had no money. I got no money from any outside sources. So it was very lean and very difficult in the beginning, and was for a lot of years. But where I am now, using the principles of prosperity that Unity teaches and that I believe in, over time, I feel like I'm in a position where I'm very satisfied with where I am financially, with what I receive, as well as what I give. I give an awful lot back financially, not just of my time and my talent. And you know what's interesting too, Angie, is I'm not that interested in having more and collecting more. I think there does come a point in your life, if you're growing in awareness and spiritually, where certain needs and wants are fulfilled, and then it's not really about anymore. It's about experiences, it's about giving, it's about sharing.
It seems many people seem to make that shift where you realize that you can create mounds and mounds of possessions, but it just doesn't bring happiness, maybe for a minute. but not long,
That's
heartfelt
right.
happiness.
That's right.
Have you ever encountered resistance from friends or family or acquaintances regarding what you do?
Oh, God, yes. Absolutely. Certainly in the beginning, when I made peace with or recognized that ministry was the right calling for me, there was a lot of shock from the people closest to me. My parents, I was 21 when I went into ministerial school. So that's really, I was and still am the youngest person to have ever been ordained in Unity. And so my parents were very concerned about things like, are you running away from life and running to an ivory tower? I remember when I shared.
That's very funny, isn't it?
Yes.
Running to an ivory tower.
Mm-hmm. And believe me, ministry is not an ivory tower. There's no escaping oneself or difficulty in ministry, truly. But that's just one example of some of the resistance early on. But certainly, I think anyone who is at all a public figure or a leader just sets themselves up. Circumstantially, they're set up for resistance and criticism and misunderstanding and projection and all of those things. And I think it can be even further compounded if you are a female, because certain leadership qualities are more socially accepted in a man than they seem to be in a woman. So then you compound that in a spiritual community where it can be even more difficult.
Lots of people armchair quarterbacking.
Yeah.
How things should be run and what should be done, and probably how you should behave, I'm sure. That's got to be a difficult spot to be in.
Oh, yes.
Someone once said to me, if you want all of your issues to come at once, just decide to go to ministerial school, because everything you need to heal, everything you need to address, all your uncertainties, they'll be right there for you to address right then.
I can attest to that.
I'm sure that you can. Well, I'm glad that you're still following your heart and doing the work of your life. I know you make a difference in so many people's lives every week and everywhere you are. I probably get to hear that as much or more than you do, because a lot of people maybe don't get to see you because you're off doing something else or starting something new. So it's been delightful talking to you. Can I ask you a quick lightning round of yes or no short answer questions?
Sure.
Do you think passion and purpose are the same things?
No.
Do you think everybody has a purpose?
Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, how important is following your joy and igniting your life purpose?
10.
Did you ever quit your job to follow your purpose? Well, we know you didn't have a job at the age of 21 probably, but I'll ask you anyway. Did you ever quit your job? Do you think somebody needs to quit?
No, actually, I did quit my job.
Okay, and that seems to have worked out well for you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was a stenographer for the city of El Cajon, and I quit that job to go to ministerial school.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Yes.
You have some pretty tired fingers by now. I can't even see you doing that job. What brings you, personally, great, great joy?
My family.
If you unexpectedly amassed a good-sized fortune, what would you do differently?
I'd probably give 90% of it away by funding projects that I believe in.
Beautiful. And just in closing, what should our listeners learn from your life experience?
Of all the questions, I think that is one of the most challenging to answer. And I think that I would have to say, be willing to trust yourself, be willing to trust what comes into your consciousness that may at first seem to be something you can't relate to, like my calling into ministry, and be willing to look at that, push past or move past the resistance and probe it deeper to see what gift it might be trying to bring you. It may really be the vehicle through which you find what your true life purpose is.
Thank you for that. What is the best way for people to connect with you or the Unity Center?
If they're in the San Diego area, joining us on Sunday mornings at 9 or 11 for our services is a great way to connect in a very direct way. We have a website, theunitycenter.net. We are on Facebook and all the social media platforms. We can be contacted. I can be contacted through email, the Rev Wendy at theunitycenter.net, or give us a call at 858-689-6500.
Beautiful. Well, I'm so delighted that you took time out of your very, very busy schedule to spend with me. Is there anything that you'd like to say that we haven't covered today?
I think I'd just like to invite any of your listeners, if they're interested. I send out a short little message every morning. It is written by me as a result of my morning meditation practice, called Just for Today. I send it out via Twitter and our Facebook pages. The very short, simple practices for leading a more spiritual, joyful day. No charge. Happy to share that. If any of your listeners are interested, they can just contact the center and we can put them on the list.
Okay, and we'll make sure to put a link to that in our show notes. So for anybody that's out there listening, just review the show notes for Wendy Craig-Purcell at lifepurposeadvisor.com, and we'll have a link there that you can go directly to get these wonderful messages. I have never told you this, Wendy, but I know that my mother in Ohio reads your messages every morning. In fact, I get quite a kick out of the fact that sometimes she forwards them to me because she wants me to read them. So they're very, very delightful.
That's sweet. I enjoy doing them, and it really stretches me to reflect deeply and write something every single morning, sometime between 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock.
And that gauntlet of getting all those personal practices done. But I really enjoy them. I know other people do as well. It's been my pleasure having you, Wendy. I'm going to close for the day, and we look forward to hearing more from you and seeing how you continue to contribute to the world. You've been listening to the Life Purpose Advisor podcast. Today, my guest was Reverend Wendy Craig-Purcell. If you like what you've heard today, please visit me at www.lifepurposeadvisor.com. Please let us know if there's somebody else that you'd like to hear from. And please rate and review this podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher Radio. We'll see you next time.